Yeah, like I was saying, the Storm King sport thing's pretty cool. A lot of great athletes, a lot of great people, and we have one more award to do tonight before we adjourn, and it's an important award, a really important award. It's the Margaret Clark Award, which is Faculty Excellence. And my script has been moved around, so forgive me for a second here. Miss Margaret Clark, who retired from the Storm King School in 1938, saw a century change in her 44 years of service as an arts teacher here. She also designed the school crest that we still use today. In recognition of her impact and service on this campus, the Margaret Clark Faculty Excellence Award was established in 2006. This award is given to faculty of longevity, whose dedication transcends the classroom, whose high ideals have become part of the tradition of the school. Everyone in this room will know one or more of the names of the past recipients of this award: Wendt, Sauer, Minardi, Kalawi, Stryker, Broughton, Breton, Horton, Carhart, Van Dyke, Donahue, Stern, Hayes, Chrysler. This year I'm honored to present the Margaret Clark Faculty Excellence Award with a little help from my friends. They've sent in some videos, so just give your attention to the screen if you would.
Coach McLean, congratulations on this great honor for the Faculty Award. Very exciting. I just want you to know how much you meant to me. You inspired me to get into coaching, to be my best every day, to bring my best every day. And those great memories against Nina at West Point and the battles on the baseball field as well as soccer just lasted a lifetime. I've been doing this for 40 years now as a head coach, and so much of that is inspired by you. So thank you from deep in my heart, and love you, and congratulations on your award. Very deserving, and hope we can cross paths in the near future. All the best.
Thank you, Lynn, for allowing me an opportunity to send a written testimony in support of Dr. Leslie McLean as recipient of the Storm King Alumni Council's Margaret Clark Faculty Excellence Award. Allow me to briefly digress to explain why Dr. McLean has such an important impact on my life. Early diversity efforts at Storm King were integration experiments. An organization called A Better Chance, or ABC, selected capable African American students from around the country and matched them with prep schools in the Northeast. The goal was to improve preparation and selection of these students into top colleges in the country, and therefore assure success in professional and career development, and in integrated society as well. I was selected by Storm King from a pool of ABC applicants. Arriving as a 14-year-old from rural Mississippi, I had lots of baggage. I came from segregated schools and knew only a segregated society. I didn't feel part of SKS and doubted the social and academic experiment would work. But my confidence changed when I met Leslie McLean. First, as a faculty, he was the first native Southerner, white male, that helped me feel okay about being from the South. More importantly, he wouldn't accept excuses for poor work or offer sympathy for a poor background. I had few athletic skills, yet he was patient to recognize and encourage hard work and effort as more critical when participating in sports like soccer, wrestling, or baseball. New stuff for me at the time, and totally out of my comfort zone or experience. Third, he was naturally sensitive to issues of race and prejudice and perception of wealth and poverty. But he didn't allow me to use it as an excuse for not exceeding at what I had to do. Fourth, he quietly accepted my need for religious and spiritual growth, often driving me to Sunday school services in Cornwall, although he clearly did not profess such spiritual attachment. Sometimes I was the only passenger on the bus. Finally, his conversation was uplifting and positive, and led by example in the field or as an escort to activities off campus. To be sure, there were many faculty and administrators at Storm King who changed my life. The Brogans, the Hortons, Mr. Roker, Mr. Broughton, the Sowers, and many others. But Les McClain was a mentor who quietly encouraged me to understand I'm here for a greater purpose, and ultimately encouraged me to accept the South as a home from which to make a difference. Storm King was a life changer, and I truly believe the experiment worked. Thanks to Les McClain, I'm a better human being than I thought possible. Congratulations, Les.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Hankinson. I'm from the class of '74. I got to spend 3 wonderful years on the mountain getting to know Les McClain. And I think of Les in 3 basic ways: as a leader, as a coach and mentor, and as a friend and confidant. And as a leader, he led by example. He walked the talk. He was serious, fun, smart, and most of all, he was steady as a rock, especially when we had some troubled times on the mountain. Always supportive of the man. As a coach and mentor, he was tough but fair. He pressed you to be your best as a student and as an athlete, and he instilled confidence in you when you really needed it to be able to get the job done. I remember my junior year, and we were playing Millbrook, and we were behind by 1 run, and it was bottom of the 7th inning, and we had a couple men on base, and I was up in the batter's box, and he waves me over and says, "Come over here, Petey." And I went over and I said, "Coach, you want to get somebody to pinch hit for me?" He grabbed the bat with both hands. He says, he looked me square in the eye, and he said, "No, I want you to hit the ball over the second baseman's head." Shoved me back towards the plate. And with that first pitch, I hit it over the second baseman's head, and we won. The point is, he knew exactly what to say to me to get me to focus on a single thing, which was necessary to get the job done. And he didn't just do that with me; he did it with everybody. And that was the thing that made him so special, is that he listened and got to know each of us in our own unique ways. As a friend and confidant, he was generous with his time. He gave us wise counsel. He gave us tough love when we needed it. And most of all, he was this positive, kindred spirit that, with a fabulous sense of humor and an infectious laugh, you just wanted to be around him. And I remember after my senior year, there were a bunch of us who stayed on the mountain after graduation and worked locally, and we had quite a time getting to know each other, playing pickup soccer games, talking about the world out there, and all the adventures beyond. He shared a lot of his thoughts and experience, and it was a blessing to be able to have that kind of additional education before we all left the mountain and faced what was ahead of us in college. So he's a special man. I'm sorry I'm not there to share this day with you, Les. There's a lot of people in that room right now and beyond, even out here in San Francisco, that love you and who you made an indelible mark on, and we won't forget you. And again, congratulations on this honor, well deserved. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, I played for that guy, and he probably still thinks he was a good disciplinarian, but he wasn't. And he just got respect from everybody, and there was nothing that I wouldn't do for him on the field and off the field. Losing was not an option. Being a bad sportsman was not an option. We had a tradition to uphold. We had to carry ourselves like gentlemen at all times, and yet play as hard as we could. And that combination helps build character in young people. And a lot of that was unspoken. He carried that demeanor in himself and everything that he did, and changed my life. And I'll tell you a brief story. The 72-73 varsity soccer team was a great team. And for whatever reason that year, we were playing the Storm King Cup down at West Point against Nema. And we went down there with our 40 fans, and those of you who know Peter Wunsch had this huge bass drum, and that was our marching band. And we went out there with that group, and then Nema came on the field, and the West Point marching band followed them. And anyway, in preparation for that game, and this is what got us set for that game, is that number one, Les started the tradition for us anyway, we would take the soccer ball from the day before, and the day of the game, we would pass it every time we saw a teammate in the school. And you had a time that you could actually hold the soccer ball. Remember doing that? And it brought us together as a team, and we met in the TV room, the Schmidt room, right before we left for the game. And it was most of us were seniors, and I'm sure we expected a tough, hard speech from Les and what we needed to do. And what he did is he looked around the room and he said, "No matter what happens today, we love each and every one of you." And that's all we needed. And we went down there, Nema scored the first goal. We tore into them like nothing you've ever seen. We ended up scoring 6 unanswered goals, taking the cup back. And he had a penchant for saying the right thing at the right time, and participating with us at our own level, but also leading us in a way that was dignified and special. And for that, thank you forever for that. And Les received more votes than anybody else in the history of the school for this award. And I'd like to call him up and present the Margaret Clark Award for Excellence.
I'm not going to keep you up here very long, I promise. Okay. I could probably, as a matter of fact, I remember, I think it was Woodrow Wilson was once asked to do a speech, and he said, well, how long do you want the speech? He said, what do you mean by that? He says, well, if it's going to be for like 3 to 5 minutes, I'll need about 3, maybe 4 weeks. If it's about 10 or 15 minutes, it'll take me about a week. And if you need 2 to 3 hours, I'm ready right now. I have to start out by sort of going things in reverse. When I left Storm King, I went with Frank down to Miami. And as his assistant head and dean of students, and I will tell you, it was definitely a different world where we were merging 2 very different schools together. And I even questioned, was that a good idea on my part? Because Dad had actually always asked me to stay back up here. But besides being my dear friend and mentor with he and Maya, and we had a lot of long talks, just the 2 of us. And I can thank him because he brought me down to Miami, and that's where I found my beautiful bride of 40 years, Diana. And my number 1 son, I only have 1 by the way, my daughter Caitlin wasn't able to make it here, but of course she gives me hugs all the time anyway, so that makes up for it. But I can remember sitting with Frank and we were talking about Storm King, and I said, how did you do it? How did you have all those special people? It was a magical time, it truly was. And he said, you know, it was just stars crossing. You just all happened there. And I will say that, and all the kids, they're not kids now, they're adults, who were here, and I hear that from other generations, that the faculty, like the students, were so diverse. I mean, the diversity was unbelievable. I could talk, you know, the first kid I ever hired was Al Bernstein, Bernie. He was a MIT PhD dropout, and he started out with Coca-Cola bottle glasses, squeaky shoes, and his Toyota, and he was the world's greatest junkyard chemist. I mean, he was unbelievable. We couldn't afford nickel chromium wire, nichrome, and he says, hey, they used to have that in toasters. Let's go down to the Newburgh junkyard. And we went down and filled up the back of his Toyota full of these toasters for 10 cents a pound. And we came up here, we started stripping out all the toaster wire, you know? And I mean, we're getting miles of this stuff. And I mean, this stuff was expensive. Nobody knew this. And of course, then we took the old toasters back, sold it back to them. We didn't have many pieces of equipment when we came up here, because I remember opening up the drawer and there were like 4 airplane instruments. And I wondered what the heck that had to do with a biology class. But anyway, we managed to get, Frank gave us the money and we were getting instruments, and I had this prize 9-volt battery, big red one. And I came in one day to my classroom and I was going to do an experiment with it, and it was gone. And we had just taken over the basement of the science lab. It had formerly been an art work room, and we got it back for an independent lab. And I go down there and open up the door, and then I noticed that out of the wall were coming 2 big wires. And the wires came over to this table, and there was a fan blowing on a huge piece of plywood. And my physics slinky, it's one of those big ones that go about 20 feet, and you sit there and show wave motion. Al had stapled it to the piece of plywood with the fan blowing on it. It is glowing red, I mean red hot. And off of that came over some other ones to another table. And there he had taken fireplace brick, thermite, and put it together, and there was my 9-volt battery cut wide open, and he had taken out the carbon electrodes, and he had stuck it into the side of the brick. And I said, Al, what the hell are you doing? And he said, oh, well, up in the classroom we were talking about diamonds and carbon compounds, and when we got talking about diamonds, we decided to come down here and make them. And that's what he was doing. He was making very tiny industrial diamonds. That was Al Bernstein. That was my other person who was up at High Mount, as we were the dorm masters. And then one time I remember walking out of my dorm, I was actually in room, the apartment there, and I go out and the kids about 9:30 were having a shaving cream fight. And I came out in my sort of drill sergeant attitude, you know, things are going to be the way they are. And the kids all of a sudden, they saw me and they sort of stopped. And I walked into one room and they had stopped. And as I turned around, there was this hand that came up over the door with shaving cream and hit me perfectly, right there. I pulled back the door. It was Al Bernstein. He was having fun with it. Well, that was Al. Tom Rokier, who looked just like Benjamin Franklin, and he was in a PhD program at East West Studies at the University of Hawaii, waxed philosophically. And it was up this level. We sort of aspired to be like Tom. And then there was Larry Cohen, who was both the player coach of the hockey team at Columbia while he participated in the riots while working in the admissions office. He had a motorcycle. He had, I think, something like 6 cats and about 3 dogs. He probably smoked 3 packs of Camels every day and probably had a case of Rolling Rock, I don't know. But he also lived down in Lowmount, and he said, we go down and knock on his door, and he say, come on in, but with those cats and the dogs, we say, no, you come out. Those are just two examples, and then Peter John Bailey, who did our drama, who was one of the most creative people in the world. I mean, it was unbelievable. Of course, he did a couple of off-Broadway runs a little bit later, but he was also talking with the kids at night. He knew how to get into their heads and into their souls and to lift them up. The problem was, this was after hours. And I would catch sometimes the kids up at High Mount sliding back the windows and climbing out to go home to see Peter John. And I can remember one night I walked over and I was furious, and when I knocked on his door I said, Peter John, I don't know whether to deck you or hug you. And he said, well, you can hug me. Okay. And we sat down and we would have our wine and we'd talk about it, and he was a true gift for all the kids. I mean, I can go down and I go on and on, but it was a collection. And even when the kids left here, off on their vacation, we'd actually all get together. We weren't hurrying off anywhere, but we'd all get on motorcycles and go to a trip somewhere. And some of them remember Alan Cervetnik, who was probably one of the craziest men on a motorcycle. We're going 70 miles up the New York Thruway, teachers all together, riding whatever it is. And Al, all of a sudden in the front, all of a sudden just pulls right over to the side of the road and parks it. And we pull over behind him and we say, what's going on? And he says, well, I just blew out my front tire. And we went. You ever seen what happens normally to a motorcycle going 70 miles an hour when it blows out the front tire? The man was just a master. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, the whole personality of all these people was so different. But we came together, and Herb Sauer, who was Mr. Computer, our magic man, who could schedule a whole school with a piece of cardboard this big. We had a science department meeting, and we all got together, and this was after a couple of weeks, and Herb said, he says, I can't believe it. I've never seen such gifted, diverse people who came into a room and just united as one. If somebody came up with an idea, something, a program for the kids, an intercession or a course, it used to be, oh, we can't do that. Here, everybody was saying, oh, wow, that's a great idea. How can we get it to happen? It was a magical time with the kids. Now, Lynn, I'll never forgive you for showing my car in the commons room of High Mount. Well, I had this little Fiat Spider convertible. I messed up the top. It was a disaster. And I was up in High Mount, and we had snow one night, and it really was up to the roof of my car. It froze my car. So I'm gone, and I come back, and what the kids had done, they had gone out in all that snow. They had literally picked up my little Fiat car, carried it down. There were some big trees at the time, down around the slope, back up through the sliding glass doors, and parked my car right in the commons of the dormitory. And I'm in my room there, and they, Mr. McLean, can you come out here? I'll be there in a minute. Can you come out here? And then I said, okay, and I'll go out, and there's my car sitting right in front of the fireplace. They don't realize they did me a great favor because they thawed the car out. And they went on to a holiday. I could go on, and I'm not going to, because that was the special quality of these people up here who were working with the kids. And it was a community, and Frank was our head person. I mean, he really was. Two of my favorite pieces is a poem by Rudyard Kipling, which is If. And it starts out, if you can keep your head when all about are losing theirs and blaming it on you. And the other one that Frank would impart upon all the kids was Marjorie Williams' The Velveteen Rabbit. I don't know if you remember the story, but there's this rabbit who's in the nursery, and he's brand new, and he's a loved toy, but he just really wants to know what the world is it real, whatever. And he's asking around, and he finally comes across this skin horse, one of the old toys in the nursery, who has been worn threadbare. And he says, what is real? And he said, real, you just become. And he says, well, does it hurt? And he says, well, yes, it does. After a while, your joints get cranky, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, and you lose your skin and everything else. But it doesn't matter, and you can never be ugly as long as you are real. And I think, and this comes back to me, I mean, and I think about my own journey in life after I left here, and I've been the headmaster of a couple of schools, an educational consultant. I was a law school associate dean for a while and everything else. But out of all those experiences, this was the base. This was the place that was the center, even my values as a teacher and the way that we worked with the kids. And I think the bottom line is that it came down to this was home. And I think that's sort of what everybody here, that no matter where we go, all of our different paths, you know, what all the triumphs and the tragedies that we've had, we know we can come back here and know that we are enough. We are what we are, and that's a good thing, no matter what our ups or downs are. And that's what Storm King is. We come back as one. We come back as a family. We come back as a community, regardless of the years. And I hear the stories of different decades, different people, but that whole basic essence is still there. And I get a little bit misty-eyed when I think about all this place and all these good, beautiful people who are my friends even back then and today. And you don't know how much this is an honor, but I'm really taking it with all the good people I worked with here because they loved the kids. We loved you. Thank you.
Just a round of applause for all the recipients and celebrants and everybody. Please don't forget to vote in the coming years for our for nominations and everything else. And I want to thank everybody else for coming out. And it's time for a cocktail party and comments. Have a great night, everyone.